Yeah, bro. Okay. I have this video pulled up. It's called "Why Did the Future Look Cooler in the 2000s?" That's what I ask myself all the time. You guys remember like what like everybody's like depiction of like the future would look like? It was like always so clean and like I don't know. It was like very. How do you describe it? It looked very clean and just like I don't know, like nice. Here, I'll show you what I mean. I've seen this pop up all over my TikTok. My personal TikTok. I think it's called like Fruitiger Arrow? Fruitiger Arrow? Yeah, Fruitiger Arrow. I think that's what it's called. This. The aesthetic is what they're calling it. This. Y'all remember? Y'all remember when this was like popular and like this was kind of like the depiction of wow, the future. I'm probably giving you guys so many flashbacks right now. Oh my god. Here, I gotta play it. What is it called? It's like I can find it. Hold on. Arrow song. I think it's this one. Give me 1 second, y'all. I'm gonna transport you guys. Ready? Hold on. I'm trying to find it. I'm trying to find. Oh, this one I think. Y'all remember this? Like what? Like what is this, bro? Just transported, bro. Just transported to my childhood listening to that. Like this, bro. the world now if we kept using Fruitiger Arrow. Yeah, y'all remember this? Y'all remember this aesthetic? Look at this, bro. Sorry. What did I get in the chat here? I feel like I'm transporting y'all. Yes. Yes, I love Stop Being Mean, no nostalgic vibe. Dude. Yeah, like this, bro. Anyways, yeah, I think this is like look, what was it that why did it look so much cooler back then? Like this isn't what we see now. It's completely different. It's soulless is what we see now with the future. You know? It sucks. Like what happened? So I saw this video and I wanted to check it out with y'all. Let's see what they
Remember
think.
when the future looks like this? Or perhaps like this?
Yeah, this is what we're
happened
talking
to
about.
that? From movies and marketing to games and aesthetics, it seemed way cooler in the 2000s. Now, there's a lot of weird reasons for this, and no, it's not just because you were younger. Chances are your expectations have changed regardless of your age. So, why doesn't the future look like this anymore? Were these actually real places? And more importantly,
Yeah.
what the hell was going on in the 2000s?
What the hell? Futurism. Where the
Even
flying
if you
cars
aren't
at?
familiar with the term, you've definitely seen futurism before. Maybe you played
Blade
Fallout
Runner right
and
there.
fell in love with its 1950s aesthetic. This is actually called retrofuturism, and
Oh,
there's
I've
a
seen
reason
that.
it feels strangely familiar. It draws on predictions from the 50s to create this nostalgic yet high-tech look. Back then,
I think this is
really
what the new
was how
Fantastic
people
Four
thought
movie is
things
gonna
would
go
turn out.
off. Like
And
this
yes,
is like
we're
the
still
new.
waiting on
I think this
flying
is the
cars.
aesthetic they're gonna use.
The point is, every decade had its own version of this. The 2000s were especially strange, but we
Oh
aren't
my
there
God.
quite yet. Another notable period was the 80s, responsible for popularizing the cyberpunk aesthetic. Movies like Blade Runner painted a future full of neon lights,
Yeah, Blade Runner.
augmentation, and giant holographic advertising. It also did something the 50s, 60s, and 70s didn't really do. It made the future look kind of scary. Rather than
Yeah.
only focusing on the wonders of the space
Have
age,
you watched
it hinted
Preacher?
at a more
I haven't. I
dystopian
need to, though.
existence. And this
I've
wouldn't be
I've
the
heard
last
about it.
time. Still, when the 90s rolled around, people started to get a lot more excited for the future. This
Yo,
ramped
what's
up
up?
towards
How
the
you
end of
doing?
The decade, and you started to see the word 2000.
Sorry, I'm on
plastered
TikTok
over
and on Twitch, so
everything. It was a
don't get it mixed
symbol
up. If
of
I'm not talking,
technological
if it seems that I'm
advancements,
like talking to someone else, it's probably because I am. I'm talking on TikTok and on Twitch.
experimentation, and a
Thank you
new
for the likes. I
digital
appreciate y'all
age.
with them likes.
Depending on when you grew up, you might have had varied expectations for this future. For instance, the vision of the early 2000s was vastly different to its later years. In fact, as we dig deeper, a lot
This
deeper,
was the 2010s. Hold on. Wait,
was vastly different to its later.
I thought this was earlier. I thought this was earlier. I thought this was in the 2000s. I thought this dated even before the 2010s. Am I crazy? Hold on. POV 2003. You're living in the future. Like, what? I thought this was in the early 2000s. No way. Oh, let's see.
Years. In fact, as we dig deeper, a lot deeper, you may start to notice some recurring design trends. These all have names, and when we eventually look at those, we can start to understand why things looked the way they did. But first, let's explore the future.
Dude, that's
a
a sick lamp he has back there. I need to get me that. I've been looking for a lamp like that for my setup too, to be
Reels
honest.
to YouTube playlists, there's hundreds of videos documenting
Y2K
the unique
futurism.
visuals of the
Yeah,
early
this
2000s.
Y2K.
I mean, if you're subscribed, you'll know that I've made at least one. Anyway, a great place to start looking for futurism is commercials. Despite being only 20 years
yeah.
ago, you wouldn't find
Marketing
anything
and
like them
commercials,
today.
bro.
The first thing you'll notice is that everything is blue. Anything from car
Yeah,
ads to
true.
albums was put through the same filter. The next thing you'd be asking is,
Why is everything chrome?
Chrome.
Everything is chrome in the future.
in the late 90s and early 2000s, this is mostly what the future looks like. Making something
Yeah.
silver and shiny set it apart from the aesthetics
Clean,
of previous
shiny,
decades.
that's what-
It felt
yeah,
energetic,
that's what
advanced,
everything
and
was like
alien. I also get the
in their
sense that it
depictions.
took itself a lot more seriously. Where the 80s and 90s often used more vibrant colors and
Utopian,
patterns in
cyberpunk,
marketing, the early 2000s
neobrutalism.
employed a darker atmosphere and a more
Look at that, bro. Jimmy Neutron. Look, sick. Jimmy Neutron. Is that Spy Kids? Oh, dude, you remember these goggles? I remember that. I remember seeing that around.
uniform
Silent
palette.
Hill too.
Look at 90s aesthetics like
Wacky homo.
they're so much more
What?
chaotic and colorful.
Oh,
it's
yeah.
worth noting that this didn't just randomly start at the turn of the millennium. A lot of what we'll be covering today stemmed from the late 90s. Anyway, this ad is a great example. The people are shown with this trippy blue scanning effect, kind of like the sonar
Like you're
scene
tripping
in
balls
Batman.
watching
the
that.
car itself looks like it's flying through hyperspace, morphing into different trims and models. You'd expect it to be something groundbreaking, their top-of-the-line car. It's a Toyota Echo. That was an ad for a Toyota Echo. Pepsi got in on this as well, and I think their collection of ads are the best demonstrations of the style. They had it all: metallic clothing, a chrome-plated spaceship, and an overwhelming blue tint. I love to use this clip, so you might have seen this one for Pepsi Blue before.
Pepsi
It's,
Blue.
It's perfect.
ร้านนี้เท่านั้น
But this aesthetic wasn't just seen in adverts. You could spot it on pretty much anything
Album
associated
covers,
with
right?
technology or gaming. And
Wasn't
this
in
quickly
gaming
bled
album
into real
covers?
life. Have a look at Nintendo World from 2005. There's the exact same pairing
Ew.
of chrome and blue. Every DS is the same color, and the chairs and architecture make it feel like you're stepping into a space station. Sony's PSP Pavilion echoed these design principles. There was a long, illuminated walkway, glass pod chairs, and a blue backdrop. In the other corner, Xbox
Xbox?
embraced the more alien aspects of these styles.
Yeah, they did.
Outside of its own game show booths and demo kiosks, you could see this in its menus. It feels
Oh,
like
that menu, bro. Look at that. Also, let me see. Let me be right back. I think I have something. I have an order coming, so I just want to double check I don't miss it. I had an order. I had a grocery order delivered, so that's what took my attention away. Here we go. Back at it. Let's see.
the interface you'd use at the helm of a UFO. Either way, at the start of the
Death
decade,
Star.
this was how the future was portrayed. Chrome-plated, sleek, and surreal. This wasn't the case
Cloud
forever,
City
though,
from
and
Star
if you were
Wars,
born
pretty
a
much.
little later and remember wanting an Xbox
Oh,
720,
dude, only OGs remember this, bro. Did y'all remember the Xbox 720 like theories and like videos and like the PlayStation 3, PlayStation 4 and 5? The Xbox 720, dude. Oh my god. Yeah, PS4's Xbox 720. Those were the days, bro. Those were the days, y'all. Do you guys remember that? Comment down below if you guys remember that, cuz dude, this is bringing back so much memories. The sound system 009 in the back too. Ooh, come on. I feel like an unk saying this, bro. But those of you who know and were on YouTube that in its inception, you guys know what I'm talking about. Sound System 009 carried a lot of YouTube videos back then with what was it? Unregistered Hypercam. Come on, man. I feel like an unk.
it might have looked something like this. But that doesn't explain why things were the way they
Dude.
were, or how
Try to
we
get this
even
aesthetic
got
for
there.
the setup.
To do that, we have to dive even deeper. I've kept this to myself for far too long.
That's a sick
Just
ass
like Neo in the
setup right there.
Matrix, an aesthetic, almost entirely summed up in 3 words. Leather, sunglasses, and slow-mo. It can also be
Matrix?
encapsulated in one movie, making its alternative
To a
title,
simple-
The
What up,
Matrix
Brew? How you
Effect,
doing?
Unsurprising. But
Hey,
why
I
am
got to watch a
talking
little
about
bit of
this
your
in a
stream
video
earlier.
about the 2000s, and how did 3 elements define an entire era? Blade, X-Men,
Blade.
Mission Impossible,
Yeah.
everyone had a leather
The
jacket.
colorless in black leather, bro. I remember that. The original X-Men on Fox. Yeah, Blade.
And if it wasn't a jacket, it was a latex bodysuit. A lot of this style drew inspiration from anime. Characters from Trigun, Akira, and Vampire Hunter all shared slicker, form-fitting
Dang.
bodysuits and, of course, dope jackets. They came across as more futuristic and agile than traditional Western action heroes. This helped engineer the aesthetic shift
How
from
mu-
movies like this
Let me see.
to 90s cool.
Hold on.
Ripped sleeves,
What'd you say, Brew? What'd you say? Yo, my voice is shot. Debating about again. IDK. Oh, are you gonna actually try to go live again? I mean, it's your call, man. I would rest my voice if I were you. Come on, man. That's your moneymaker right there.
and sweaty jungle combat were out, and gigantic coats and Oakleys were
Dude,
in.
that
Across the
scene is so
board,
iconic.
Everyone had crazy fits.
The
Fashion
music in
was
the background
suddenly
as a
prevailing over
bloodbath is
utility.
occurring.
Hardly a shocker, but this was already being mirrored outside the big screen.
Thank you for the
Music
likes,
videos
bro.
were in
Appreciate
the same
you.
boat, having more bullet time than the entire Matrix trilogy. Again, there's the shiny jackets and pants, and the blue tint we mentioned earlier. If you're more familiar with games, look back at Deus Ex, Perfect Dark, and Mortal Kombat 2. All of those
Yeah.
came out in the year 2000, showing that the style was still going strong. Setting-wise, they also shared similarities. Much like the Matrix, they were often in dystopian cities and environments, with advanced technology and weapons. JC Denton from Deus Ex is just a copy and paste of every 90s cool ancestral tenant. Slicked back hair, cold demeanor, and a long-ass jacket. In his own words,
Just like the movies.
the reason this look was so popular was extremely simple. It just looked cool. That's it. Technology and hacking were represented by shifting lines of code,
Thank you for the likes,
sleek
y'all.
gadgets and outfits. It felt like a fitting visual language for this new reality. Edgy, fashionable, and shiny. I've included it here because it set the
shiny.
stage for a lot of what's about to come, and was heavily influential up until the mid-2000s.
Power
With
Rangers.
that being said, let's continue on and see what we find.
No.
Eve to me is basically freedom. It's a
Can I skip?
giant open universe
Please let
where
me skip.
you can do
Chrome Future.
We've established that chrome and blue were the colors of the future. But why was this, and does this look have a name? From the late 90s to the early 2000s, you couldn't escape products and media covered in curved silver plating. This
Yeah.
idea was famously captured in SB-129, the 14th episode of SpongeBob. Released just before the year 2000, it shows Squidward being cryogenically frozen and waking
Dude,
up
this
2000
episode-
years later. He's met by Spongetron, and of course, everything looks like this. There's even a guy running around spray painting stuff that doesn't fit in, which is hard not to read as a jab at literally any tech company at the time. I mean, seriously, look at flip phones, handhelds,
Yeah,
consoles,
everything,
and watches.
dude.
I don't know
The
why, but these
PS1.
are suddenly weirdly appealing to me. But I've made some interesting choices in the past. More to the point, this trend has been retroactively organized and categorized through the aesthetic known as Chromecore. I've discussed this
Chromecore.
before, but it's important to mention here because it really was significant. It capitalized on the narrative of a metallic future by giving people tech from that vision. Even though this is just a Nokia, it feels right at home in all of those ads and music videos. Now you could own a piece of them yourself. Notably, you could also spot it in website design. The second that people
Dude.
could add reflections to anything they did.
We had culture before. What happened? What happened to us? We used to have so much aura and culture. Now we're just all soulless and minimalistic.
leading to pages
Sad.
like these. Compared to 90s cool, it showed a cleaner, more optimistic approach to style and futurism. Still, while being more sanitized, it was far from minimalist and just as exciting. At this point, you might be wondering why nothing really looks like this anymore. It still comes across as futuristic and clean.
Yeah,
so
what
why can't
happened?
you buy a Chrome PlayStation or Nintendo Switch? Why had this look completely disappeared by
Dude.
2010? Well, a lot of it came down to materials. Shiny stuff is susceptible to scratches, wear and tear, and general
fair.
damage. damage. If you've ever owned one of those old Lego swords, you'll see where this is going. After a few years of the craze, companies started to shift back to more durable and cheaper materials. Everyone except Apple. Why the fuck are phones made from glass?
Yeah,
Regardless, chrome
dude,
plating
Apple
was
for
somewhat
real.
short-lived, but one of a few interesting approaches from the time. Making everything see-through was another that we'll look at
Oh,
soon.
dude, the DS, or not the DS, the Game Boy.
2000s futurism wasn't always aggressive and metallic. Many distinct aesthetics branched out and took on a softer, more abstract approach. There's a couple that fall under the Gen X name, with the
Yeah.
most notable being Gen X Soft Club. While often overshadowed by things like Frutiger Aero and
Yeah,
Y2K
Frutiger Aero, that's what we're
futurism,
talking about.
I think it still
Y2K
looks really
futurism
clean,
and
I'd be
Frutiger
surprised
Aero.
if you haven't seen it before. It usually depicts naturalistic,
Should I
distorted
try that?
urban environments,
Should I
train
try that for my own
stations,
setup? Should I
skylines,
try
and
that
so on.
aesthetic?
Cool blues and greens were the most common colors, highlighting a future that was clean yet
Mm-hmm.
fresh and organic. Nostalgia was
That's what I said,
embraced
clean.
and blended with
Sparkly,
futuristic
clean.
optimism. The result is an aesthetic that's calming, nice to look at, and kind of hopeful. While you could see
Yeah.
it in everything from concept art to architecture and advertising, the best examples
Hope
are
Core,
on
right?
albums. Blur, The Madding
Albums.
Crowd, Midnight Drive, and Music for Airports use similar elements and techniques. The aesthetic was only categorized more recently, and the name is pretty self-explanatory. At the time, the target audience was young adults, or Gen X, and it romanticized club and urban life through this
Yep.
softer lens. It was more mature and refined than the bubbly chrome look, but still interesting enough to look at. That and the growing technology industry in the late 90s are generally credited as the reason this style exists. Even more interesting is the fact that a lot of people are still using it today. CFCF's Memoryland
'Cause it's
album
still
cover
popular,
captures
isn't
the
it?
style
I mean, I've been
excellently,
seeing
and there's
it-
been a renewed interest in it that's
Oh, hold
nice
on.
to see.
Like, I've been seeing this like Frutiger Arrow and Y2K like vibe going on TikTok. Like, I've been getting that on my For You page. It's been making a little bit of a comeback. I mean, maybe it's just my For You page, but I swear it's been making like a little bit of a comeback. Should I try that? Honestly, should I go for that aesthetic for the streams? Have a Y2K and Frutiger Arrow like type of vibe going on? Huh, I don't see a lot of other people doing it. I could start it. I can start it, you know?
Now, this is more for the unks among us, but there's another aesthetic with the Gen X moniker that preceded soft
That's
club,
crazy,
and it's definitely
unks.
worth quickly looking at. Corporate Cyber utilized a similar amount of nauseating motion blur, although being much more unruly and chaotic. The only consistency across these ads is that nothing makes sense. Another key difference was the time period. Corporate Cyber was more of an early
Corporate
90s thing,
Cyber.
whereas Soft Club landed in the latter
Corporate
years
Cyber.
of the decade and leaked into the mid-2000s. You'll notice that the former is more abstract. CGI is used more heavily with
Yeah.
varied degrees of success.
Did you
and
guys
there's a lot
watch
more
the?
colours
Speaking of this kind of like vibe and stuff, did you guys watch the Y2K movie that A24 produced? It was actually a pretty enjoyable movie. Not gonna lie.
at play.
You guys should check
I
it
wanna
out.
Finish.
There is a bird outside
What?
my window that has been barking all day long.
I want to finish this section with an
What was
open
that?
letter to Gen X. If we apologize for cancelling Eminem, can you please bring back this style?
Yeah, that's true. Y2K.
So we've covered some key aesthetics from the era, even some from the late 90s. This wasn't just because I think they're cool though, it was, as you'll find elements from all of them in Y2K futurism. This is the real meat and potatoes of the first half of
Yo,
the decade.
yeah,
and
like this
also
style.
video.
Literally, this style is like the movie I was just talking about. Y2K is literally this like the poster and everything, and like the marketing was that style, bro. I'll show you guys I'll show you guys like the marketing of that movie. I don't know why it's not. There you go. So this was a poster, literally. Zoom in. What? Yeah, I guess. So this was a poster, right? Look at the marketing in this movie, bro. I'll show you. Yeah. Why doesn't it open like here? Yeah, look at the marketing. Like, look at this marketing, bro. Pretty cool, huh? Oh, I thought it was cool. Oh, yeah. Fred Durst was in the movie, too. Spoiler alert. Not really.
video. There's tons to unpack here, from clear tech to bizarre ads and video games, so we might as well jump in. Y2K is a term derived from a software problem in the year 2000. The aesthetic covers one of the largest and most comprehensive expressions of 2000s futurism. If you spend a lot of time on TikTok or Instagram Reels, you might have heard it being referred to as cybercore or K-bug. It can be traced back as far as the late 80s, sharing visuals with rave flyers from the UK underground. However, things really started taking off with the rise of CGI and the internet. Websites and advertising began to lean into this futuristic vision. The year 2000 was right around the corner, and it was an easy way to grab a piece of the hype. In terms of games, it's usually tied to the 5th and 6th generations of consoles. You know, the original Xbox, PlayStations, GameCube, and Game Boy Advance. I recently saw an ad for the PS2 that nicely demonstrates both the technological optimism of the time and this aesthetic. The year is 2078, and it shows a mock advertisement for the PlayStation 9. When you crack it open, it releases spores that attach directly to your adrenal gland. Several shots have the same vibe as The Matrix, which makes a lot of sense as they were pretty much created at the same time. The ad closes
We have
with the
so
PS2
much more
logo
creativity
and
now.
two
Now we just have
words,
fucking AI.
the beginning. The angle here is pretty clear. Like a lot of things in this video, you're being sold a piece of the future. Even if just a taste, it's a method of marketing that makes the product feel advanced and exciting. Just like the PlayStation, the Xbox felt like it belonged in this future. And for just $2.99, so could you. Better yet,
$2.99.
plugging in a game didn't bring you out of this fantasy. The flagship title for the Xbox was a futuristic
Halo.
sci-fi shooter. The Dreamcast had games like Space Channel 5, and many others shared these kinds of settings. On the topic of futuristic consoles, I have to talk about the clear craze in the 2000s.
Yep.
I touched on
Game
this
Boy.
briefly before, but there's a new reason
That's
why
what I-
I'm
that's what
talking
I-
about it
like,
today.
that's what I think
the
about,
clear
it's a
craze
Game
was
Boy.
a distinct component of Y2K futurism and was a fad all through the early years of the decade. If it was
Yep.
tech related and it wasn't already Chrome, it was clear. TVs, controllers, consoles, and
Oh,
most
I have one of
famously
those
the
controllers
iMac
too.
G3 are all
Yeah, the
colorful
Mac.
examples. Even though there was rarely anything to actually see, it was still a seriously cool look, and many consoles with it have since skyrocketed in price. You
Damn.
wouldn't just find this in the 2000s. though.
insane.
The 80s kicked things off with phones like this, and the 90s followed suit. Outside the shelves of EB Games, Prisons had clear technology for entirely different but far more obvious reasons. Regardless, a few months ago I mentioned how badly I wanted controllers like this again, specifically for Xbox. And to my surprise, they actually just started making them, and I think they do look pretty good. All that's
I did
left
not know
now
that.
is a
I gotta check that
translucent
out.
Series X. Before we go any further, it's important to quickly mention Metal Hard, an aesthetic from the same genre and time frame as Y2K futurism. It used 3D metallic shapes to create jagged patterns and visuals.
Oh, yeah, I've
You
seen
might
these
recognize
too.
it from Armored Core Nexus, early websites, and even artwork. It's more mechanical, darker, and edgier than any of the other aesthetics in this video, especially the ones towards the
The
end.
dolphins,
Taking
bro.
its
The
name
dolphins
from
were a
book
staple,
called
too,
Metal
of
Heart,
that kinda
it peaked for a
aesthetic.
few years before starting to die out in 2004. To this day, it remains one of the most obscure yet fascinating offshoots of Y2K futurism. This period also saw some unique approaches to marketing, and I want to draw your attention to one advertising firm in particular. In the late 90s and early 2000s, a company called Fragile Design produced several pieces that resonate with almost every style we'll be covering today. I actually posted a few of these on Instagram. Looking at their work, you can see elements of Gen X Soft Club, Futurism, and Metal Heart.
Yeah.
Yes, they are
I
out
see
there,
it,
but I
yeah.
think it works. Seriously, to the 3 other Australians watching this video, you can't tell me that Big M wouldn't taste better in this carton. As a whole, technology was represented very differently to today. The internet was still borderline magic to a lot of people, which is unsurprising considering the way it was portrayed. On TV, it was visualized as anything from beams of light to fluid, multi-layered 3D spaces. There was a sense that it existed within its own realm that was separate to our own, with computers and phones representing portals into cyberspace. This dynamic was sort of
look at that,
reflected
bro.
in reality.
What was
although not
that?
nearly as dramatically. Houses used to have a computer room, a desk like this, and that was where the internet lived.
Yeah.
It was very much separate from the day-to-day, not something that followed you around at all times. This tweet nicely sums it up.
Let's see.
Today,
this.
however, this is...
Sorry for being nostalgia baited, but it was kind of nice where the internet was a single solitary unmoving place instead of a tear that extends to everywhere. You went to the specific spot to go to the internet. When you left the spot, you left the internet. It was a place. Dude, this whole setup. Yeah. I remember that. I remember having like an entire part of your house or apartment just dedicated to your computer, and the computer's looking like this. Yep.
Is no longer the
All the
case.
CDs and
Whether
stuff
it's
here,
your
too.
watch, phone, PC, MacBook, or a TV, chances are you're constantly connected to the internet. It's far from some exciting escape into a different world because it is the world. Consequently, tech just doesn't have the same aura as it did during the 2000s, and the marketing around it isn't as futuristic. Naturally, this isn't the only reason why
auraless.
2K futurism fell out of fashion and was eventually replaced by something else. But before we reach those moist horizons, we have one last stop in the early 2000s.
Fashion. Yeah, I was gonna say, there's no way they don't talk about the fashion. You can see it in the marketing.
Shoes, glasses, and this watch is all I'm wearing right now. Fashion in the 2000s wasn't always futuristic, but when it was, it did it well. This was evident on the covers of magazines, in music videos, and in movies. So let's find out why it looked like that and where it went. Remember when every artist filmed their videos inside a cheese grater or some huge industrial washing machine? If the answer is yes, you'll also remember when they dressed like this. There was a 5-year-long shiny pants competition with no winners and countless victims. Still, some did get pretty close to the title. Mark Nelson in 15 Minutes was up there but had a disturbing lack of Oakleys, B tier. Next up, Busta
Oh, he's-
Rhymes, What It Is.
he has a
Busta
tier
Rhymes,
list.
undoubtedly a GOAT, but did he deliver in this music video from 2001? Honestly, I'm thinking, yes. There's shiny pants, ambiguous chrome blobs, ambiguous chrome people, glasses, and at 1 minute 55 seconds he starts doing this. S tier.
Hey, yo.
Can't get over by September. This one really leans into the futuristic angle. Flying cars, Cloud City, and a touch of 90s
Cloud
cool.
City.
As for the main outfit, it looks like what 2006 thought 2012 would look like, and it could be shinier. A tier. Busta Rhymes is back, only this time we're inside an impossible Rubik's Cube. He looks like RoboCop, he busts a circuit here, and there's a marching band inside a giant birth canal.
God tier.
That feels like a
God
nice
tier.
segue into this next part, so we'll keep things ticking. You might not give a lot of thought to experimental looking watches, and maybe you don't even think about watches at all, but it's definitely worth paying attention to what was going on in the 2000s. We got some of the strangest looking pieces of all time as
Like weird
companies
shapes.
vied to make futuristic timekeepers. A good rule of thumb is that if it looks like it came out of Spy Kids, it was probably from this time. Personally, I don't mind
Yeah,
the
that's
Nike
true.
Triax. It even came in a silver armored version, which is now selling for ridiculously high prices. Naturally, Oakley was right behind them with the blade and the judge. As weird as they might look now, I can appreciate their attempts to put an artistic spin on something as ubiquitous and simple as the watch. In fact, this kind of experimentation today could do a lot for the industry in terms of bringing in new enthusiasts.
Who has one of these for
there's
real?
already a
Let me know if
huge
y'all have one of
secondhand
these.
market for these older pieces. Going beyond accessories, the emergence of this new futuristic look was chronicled in magazines like Kerouac. Based in Japan, an early issue titled What's Cyber looked at the outfits of an emerging street culture scene. Common elements were short, spiky hair, metallic materials, chunky platform boots, and of course, shiny pants. All in all, the message was pretty clear, regardless of where you were in the world. This was how people dressed in the future.
Goddamn ad.
Get it!
Can you imagine wearing this stuff with the boys now? Moist Horizons.
Fruitiger Aero is still massive, and I've been fruitigooning to this for the past week.
Oh, he has
if
one of
If
those,
you've run
yeah.
out of material, you're in luck, because
I need
we're
one of
about
those.
to take the biggest deep dive into the aesthetic so far. We're gonna find out what it really was, why so many people call it the future we were promised, and where exactly you might remember it from. I see
Yeah.
a lot of
What
reels showing
happened,
these
bro?
amazing futuristic interiors, and I've always
should be
wondered
living
how
like
many
this.
of those were ever real places. Later on, we'll check those out as well, because I found some genuine locations that were easily more bizarre than any concept art. Anyway, the 2000s futurism we've covered so far was very much influenced by the 90s. All of the chrome blue utopias that peppered corporate design was sparked by the... What the fuck was that? Was sparked by the hype for the year 2000. 2000. Those 4 numbers alone represented massive innovation and change, and the world did get both of those things, it just didn't anticipate how. As the new millennium ticked over, people's attitudes started to shift. As put by Mike Grindle, it's likely that Y2K aesthetics disappeared because the cultural zeitgeist that made them no longer existed. Things like 9/11, the war on terror, and the bursting of the dot-com bubble made it increasingly difficult for such an idealized future to resonate with people. Furthermore, as handheld devices and computers exploded in popularity, the world grew more familiar with them, and if you didn't, 90s style UIs were starting to look outdated. By roughly 2004, the stage was set for a revitalized approach to interfaces, and inadvertently, futurism. Corporations knew they needed to sell us something fresh, tangible, and optimistic. Reducing the gap between technology and
But wasn't
nature
Pretty
seemed to
Air
be a logical
optimistic?
place to start, where Y2K futurism portrayed tech as if it were part of some distant space-age future. This new style meshed it with existing concepts and environments. This contributed to the narrative of eco-futurism, which you're likely familiar with if you grew up in the late 2000s. But we'll unpack that more soon. Back to basics, the first signs of change were the introduction of skeuomorphic designs in Mac OS X 10 and the original Windows Longhorn, around 2001 to 2004. Their icons aimed to be more intuitive to users of every age and skill level, incorporating 3D elements that were glossy and
Yeah, I
rounded.
remember when Windows
This
looked like
philosophy
that.
and the associated design language have been retroactively named Frutiger Aero. Frutiger coming from Adrian Frutiger, the creator of this font, and Aero coming from Microsoft's design theme for Windows Vista. Today, its absence is most notable in menus. For a couple years, it was a very popular style for everything from consoles to phones
Oh, yeah.
that have blue or green swirls
Dude,
of color in the
Evanescence
background,
album.
sometimes with rays of light poking through as if underwater. When coupled with bubble or
Dude,
water
yeah.
drop-like icons,
We need
the
to bring this
naturalistic
back.
themes were hardly subtle. This was especially prolific around the early years of the 2010s, being largely replaced by flat design. This didn't stop us getting some cool interfaces though, and I especially like the original Xbox 360s and the menu for this random smart TV. Honestly, it's strange looking back at this era because at the time it didn't feel out of place at all. It's only when comparing modern designs to it that you notice how much things have changed. Samsung and Apple haven't used glossy, skeuomorphic designs for like 10 years. They aren't hard to navigate now or anything, and there still are some nice gradients and colors, but this cool design philosophy seems to be a thing of the past. So, how did this short-lived approach to UI evolve into Gen Z's promised future? Well, this look wasn't exclusive to interfaces. The switch to HD and the rise of advanced modeling software made it easier to render realistic 3D objects. This is a key difference between Y2K futurism and Frutiger Aero. The former was usually produced with lower resolution and more primitive lighting and effects. Regardless, everything from advertising to video games started to embrace this new aesthetic. It was especially popular in corporate stock images, and so many of the most iconic pictures came from a single website. Asadal Design is a Korean company specializing in,
wow.
well, stock images.
I did not know
It's
this.
where this image originally came from, now one of the most definitive representations of the style. Water, glass, and giant globes were
With
consistent
fishes,
visuals. The globes
dolphins.
representing the world or the World Wide Web. Those with buildings in the background spoke to a sustainable, optimistic vision of eco-futurism. Some have since labelled this Frutiger Eco, a subdivision centered around environmentalism and a harmonic balance between architecture and nature. You did see this a lot on TV. A good
Welcome in,
example
guys,
being
from
this ad
TikTok.
for the DS Lite. It has the same cityscape on the horizon, bright green fields and, people levitating. Moving on, if you've ever owned
Dude,
one
I need
these
one of
apps
these.
Or saw this meme recently, you'll
Yeah,
recognize another
you-
microcategory
I've used that
called
meme
Helvetica
on my
Aqua.
TikTok.
This focused more on water, the ocean, and tropical fish, and was a popular motif in interior and product design.
Oh,
It was less
dude,
futuristic,
y'all
but you
remember those? Holy, this is
It's
like
a
a
popular motif
trip
in
down memory
interior and
lane.
product design.
Dude, y'all remember these hand soap? I think they still sell them too, or at least some. Like, I think it's still around, if I'm correct. Dude, honestly, favorite hand soap of all time right here.
Design. It was less futuristic, but utilized to sell new tech regardless, as you can see in the ad on screen. In terms of architecture, Helvetica Aqua can still be found in today's interiors. Have a look at this waiting lounge from Taiwan's international airport, or even the inside of this children's hospital. Dark Arrow, on the other hand, is a little more obscure. To a guy like me, Dark Arrow is just normal Arrow, but that's just a glimpse into my twisted mind.
Oh
Popular
my
from
gosh.
around 2006 to 2015, it offered a sleeker, more professional alternative to Frutiger while maintaining the same glossy 3D elements and gradients. Great examples are these BlackBerry ads, some promotional material for Windows,
yeah, I remember
backgrounds,
the
and car
BlackBerry.
campaigns. Zooming out again,
BlackBerry
you
was
started to see
popping
more
back
forms
then,
of
dude.
media promoting this eco-futurism. Meet the Robinsons is one of the best examples that I've referenced on this channel. The futuristic city of Todayland shows a world where nature hasn't been neglected as technology advanced. There's bubbles, water, grass, and a skyline that looks straight
Damn.
out of a 2009 stock image.
Forgot
This helped
about this
shape the
movie, I'm not
narrative
gonna
that a lot
lie.
of Gen Z
I
grew
forgot
up
about
with,
it.
that the future would be colorful, high-tech, and green. On apps
Yeah,
like TikTok
see,
and
I keep
Instagram,
getting this
you'll
on my
see
TikTok.
perpetuated through shorts that cut between wavy green and blue interiors. There's a general sentiment that this future has been abandoned.
All
with
over my
people missing
TikTok,
its
bro. I
hopeful
swear.
tone.
All these like hopeful Y2K futurism and like Vertigo Arrow aesthetics are all over my TikTok, dude. With that song I played earlier. Y'all need to follow me on TikTok, by the way. If you guys aren't following me on TikTok, follow me on TikTok. Kane Redfist on TikTok. What are you doing? Come follow me.
How much of these places were ever real? Was it all concept art, or have we truly left this look behind? Well, you'd be surprised at how many places used to look like this. Offices and stores in particular made good use of the more playful colours to create corporate environments that were at least somewhat inspiring. All of the images on screen right now were real places from the mid-2000s. Interestingly, I even found some appearances as far back as 2001. The launch of the Sony Ericsson was accompanied by a pavilion that looked straight out of 2050. While sharing many elements with Y2K futurism, the glossy logo at the front, chairs and couches were distinctly Frutiger Aero, and it wasn't even called that until like 2017. O2's flagship store in 2007 embraced the naturalistic side of things even more. With flowers, bubbles and cool blues, it ticks the boxes and feels refreshing. You could also find it in post offices, hospitals and homes. If you like the look of these designs, you can check out either of the Mirror's Edge games to edge to them even more.
Oh.
As we've established, you can break 2000s
Come on, bro.
futurism
Terrible
up into two
joke.
distinct eras, Y2K and Frutiger Aero. Both envisioned different outcomes and both looked pretty cool while doing so. But you still might be wondering what the big deal is, and that's fair enough. At face value, they were both byproducts of corporate focus groups, and they weren't just made to look good, there was strategy and purpose behind their implementation. Consequently, some people don't see them as anything more than weird periods of design. Not everyone though. Growing up, the eco-futurism of the 2000s and early 2010s really did make sense. Yes, it was idealized and artificial, but it felt fun. I can understand why it's become so popular recently. In a world where corporate aesthetics have been refined, flattened, and simplified beyond recognition,
Yeah,
it offers
terrible.
a return
Soulless.
to a more optimistic and colourful period. This is largely why you'll see people
That's what I just said.
romanticize it as the future they were promised. It was everywhere in advertising, movies, and games, and then suddenly it just disappeared. Only this time, its
Unfortunately.
replacement wasn't nearly as interesting. But that is a video
Yeah.
for another day.
Dang. All right, guys. What do you guys think about that? I think it should come back. Y'all remember this style? I don't know. Y'all let me know down in the comments what you guys thought. Make sure to like and subscribe to me. I'm trying to grow on the YouTube. So, yeah, make sure you guys drop a sub down below and like the video. Share it to everyone. Definitely give this guy a sub. Follow him, you know. Follow him on all the platforms. Give him a sub here. What is his name? Let's see. I think it's right here. Yeah, Extra Mint on YouTube. Go ahead and check out his channel. He provided the content here, so I want to give back. And, yeah. With that, I'll see you guys in the next one.